Hey there, my name is Colin, also known as Skips, and welcome to the Modder's Blueprint. This is a series where I'll teach you everything you need to know to mod Terraria and make super cool content like this. I'm a CS student, and I've been modding Terraria for about 5 years, and I'm even an active developer on projects such as Starlight River. Now, we're going to be mastering the basics in this series. Visual effects will be built with Terraria's internal assets and systems. Alright, let's hop right into it. Hello everybody, and welcome back to episode 2 of the Modder's Blueprint. I do want to preface this episode, I'm sorry my voice sounds a little bit off. I was sick over the weekend, so I have some, my voice is just a little bit off because of that. But this is episode 2, and we're going to be going over something a little bit more advanced. In this episode, I want to make an item called the Gilded Grenade, which throws a grenade that explodes, and it's going to have some screen shake as well as some more advanced visual effects. Now, I have tModLoader open, but we're just going to close that and go straight to our solution. I'm going to do some of this stuff off camera, but I recommend making a range folder. I already have gildedgrenade.png, so we're going to do gilded grenade.cs. Remember, these are case sensitive. So I'm going to add some basic item declaration for shooting a projectile, and then I'll be right back. Alright, so we have a little bit to go over here, but I just added some basic stuff to initialize the item. It's pretty much the same stuff as here. As you can see, I literally copied it. But I added some new things. First of all, there's going to be a ranged weapon, so set that damage class to ranged. And then it is going to shoot a projectile. So item.shoot takes in a projectile ID, and it when used, it will fire that projectile. And then item.shoot_speed equals 12f is the speed of the, or like the velocity of the projectile thrown. I also added item.rare to give it a rarity of green because it's not going to be a white rarity as it is over here. Now, another thing we do have to do is item.nomelee equals true. That makes it so it won't deal damage in the swinging animation because it's a ranged weapon. It's not going to deal melee damage. Then item.noUseGraphic also equals true. This is good for throwing weapons. It won't show the sprite while you're using it. So, for example, when you throw shurikens, etc., stuff like that. Another thing down here, we have 2 recipes. You can call create recipe as many times as you want. This one allows you to make it with a grenade and 12 platinum bars or a grenade and 12 gold bars if you choose to do so. It's good for, platinum and gold, tin and copper, etc. Evil variants, pretty much stuff that needs multiple recipes. You can just call create recipe as many times as you want. I also have this Gilded Grenade Projectile, which is new for us. This is inheriting the mod projectile class. It doesn't do anything right now. I just have it set in place, and the texture is going to be this texture that we've got here. So we're just going to build mod real quick. And I just put projectile ID.grenade just as a placeholder, which should make it throw the grenade projectile when we throw it. Alright, so I have it in game. It's called the Gilded Grenade. So Sprite actually sees it. When we throw it, it should, yeah, it just throws a grenade. And as you can see, it's got the throwing animation. Very simple. Grenades deal damage. Nice and simple. So let's get to work on the custom projectile. Now, this is going to be a lot to go over, so it might be a little bit long-winded. So I'm going to go over these real quick. So we have set defaults, which is called when the projectile is created. AI runs every single frame that the projectile is alive. Every single frame. It should be 60 frames per second. Frame skip does some weird things with AI, I believe. But it should be locked to 60 frames a second. Can damage determines if the projectile is dealing damage to NPCs, players, and grass. And it returns false if you don't want it to deal damage. On hit NPC is called when you hit an NPC. Pretty self-explanatory. Pre-draw is the draw method. I'm returning false here because we're going to do our own custom drawing. So we do have a lot to cover. So I'm going to get some stuff started just so this video isn't like an hour long. Okay, I am back. And we have some basic stuff in play for our projectile to work. I'm going to go over it one by one. We have texture, and we also declared this int up here, which can be accessed anywhere in the class. It's part of the class now. In set defaults, we set the damage type to ranged, size, oh boy, size to a vector of 12. This is going to be the hitbox of the projectile in the world, so you want to make sure that's pretty accurate to your sprite. We set it to friendly to true and hostile to false. This makes it a friendly projectile. Do the opposite behavior if you want it to damage the player. Projectile that penetrate is 2. I'll come back to that later. And the time left is 1200. This doesn't really matter. We'll have custom behavior for when it hits a tile, probably. Anyways, this is probably going to look kind of weird. Basically, when the projectile hits the target, it's going to bounce off the NPC, the target, flash, and then explode. Because I think it looks cool. It's something I've done before a few times for some of my weapons. So this is that behavior. Basically, when it hits an enemy, its death timer is going to be set to 15. It's going to hit the enemy, bounce, explode. This code before the return statement is for the default behavior when it's just flying through the air. That's why can damage is set to projectile penetrate greater than 1, because it can't penetrate enemies, but we want it to hit an enemy and then not damage. It kind of just, it's basically just an animation, just for a bit more flair. So that's what all this logic is for. Then down here in pre-draw, we're just drawing our texture at the projectile.center. We have no custom drawing here, it's just basic drawing. We're accessing the texture 2D text using mod content.request texture.2D, and then we pass in texture, which is this string, and it accesses that texture. So all we gotta do up here is set this to mod content.request texture2D. Ding ding. Oh, whoa, what am I doing here? Mod content.projectile type autopilot, and then we're going to do gilded grenade projectile. So I'm going to build real quick, and then we'll see how it looks in game. Alright, so we built in game, and it technically exists. I mean, we throw it in and deals damage, so that's all we really need for the first build. You'll notice it's not affected by gravity, which is very simple. I copied this from somewhere. So this is 1200, and this is only adding gravity when projectile.time left, which decrements by 1 each frame. So it starts at 1200, and then every frame it goes down by 1. So this is basically a reverse timer. So we want this to be like 1180 in this case. I mean, this is probably too much of a time left anyways, but why not? So this, yeah, it gives us some harsh ass gravity. Pardon my French. Lower that a little bit. Nice. So it's affected by gravity now. And here, as you can see, we hit it, and then it lives, and then it dies about 15 frames later. What I want to do on hit NPC is projectile dot velocity times equal -1f, and then projectile dot velocity plus equal vector 2 dot y times 5 should make it kind of go up a little bit. That's way too much. Like -1.5. Yeah, that's kind of how I want it to be. We're gonna do this, and then we're also going to give it some heavy-ish gravity here. And we're going to also projectile dot velocity times equals 0.95f. I think we want this to be plus 1.5. I know this is confusing. Oh. Ooh, yeah, that looks really good. I like that. So it's gonna go bing boom, bing boom. As you can see, you kind of have the idea of how this one is going to work, and it's also going to hit twice, which is cool. So we're gonna do some custom drawing real quick. Alright, so what we want to do is make a star flash whenever it hits an enemy. And luckily, I found this neat texture called Projectile 79, which I think is the magic missile or something. And because it's a vanilla texture, we are just going to do asset something. Texture assets dot projectile ID dot. Actually, we're just gonna put in. We know it's 79. Should be able to auto help. Dot value. This should return this texture, and then we are going to say if death timer greater than 0, we're gonna draw the star, and it's going to flash and fade away. So let's copy this. Do star text. You'll notice there's this origin parameter. You want it to be text, star text, and star text, and it's just the size divided by 2f. You can change that for more advanced drawing, but we're not going to do that. Now, because this is, we might have to redo the sprite batch for this, I'm not going to lie. Because it looks like this needs an additive thing. Additive render layer. So main.spritebatch.end main.spritebatch.begin. This starts a new sprite batch, which we can add parameters and whatnot. So we're just going to default blend state additive default. This should be null. Then game view matrix transformation matrix, because I don't think that's the default. Then we could just end this. Oops, sorry, Mike. End this and default. So this is going to end our sprite batch and begin it in the additive blending mode. The rest you don't have to worry about. And now we are gonna need float fade equals death timer divided by 25f. So this is going to be a fading float that'll start at 1f when death timer is 25 and fade to 0. So we can do that with new color 5. I think we just do color dot white. Color dot white times fade. And we're gonna set this to like some small like 0.2f. I don't know how this is gonna work, to be honest. Holy tabs, Jesus Christ. I forgot. I haven't accessed vanilla textures in quite a while. Instance.load projectile. We're gonna call projectile ID, so we can just do 79. This should load the texture now. It's still not working. Wow. Boy, I sure am cooking. I think it's because of that. Holy crap. Using no projectile is gonna give me hernia. There we go. Okay. Oh, I love debugging. Okay, so we got it. There's a neat little flash. I like that. That's cool. So I do kind of want it to be golden. I kind of want it to be there. So we're going to do plus new vector 2, 5, -5 dot rotation. So now it's kind of on the tip. As you can see, we're going to make this slightly bigger. We're going to do a yellowish color. So we're going to do like 120, 200, 200. We're going to draw it again in white, a little bit smaller, because I kind of want a golden flash. That's not gold. Okay, I actually got a golden color. Should be. Kind of subtle. Ah, nice. That's cool. Neat, even. Subtly there. Maybe? See, I kind of want a more vibrant gold. I just color picked from this, I'm not gonna lie. Like, what is that? 50, 190. That's fine. 50. There we go. That's like a neat gold flash whenever we hit an enemy. Cool, 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 cool. Now I wonder. I'm gonna do some digging real quick. Yeah, let's try this. So, right now I'm loading another vanilla texture. This is Projectile 540. And we're going to see, that's going to be way too big. Yeah. So we're going to do like 5F. Even. Ooh. Neat, neat, neat. We're going to do 1F, and we're also going to just make this a little bit smaller. That's a little gaudy, maybe. Make it a little subtler. Ah, that's pretty neat. Cool. Now I do want to add a bit of randomness whenever we hit off an enemy, so we're gonna do this. We're gonna do times equals negative projectile dot velocity dot rotated by random 0.3f times main dot random float 0.7f to 1.5f. Now what this does is it flips the velocity, rotates it by a random radian of 0.3f in this case, which radian is just rotation. It's basically you're going to go boom, boom in this cone, then it's going to have random velocity. So what that's going to look like in game is incorrect. What's going on? We can do this, I guess. Am I geeked? What? This should be working, but I don't know why it's not. Yeah, what? Oh, times equal. Okay, so that's just supposed to be equals. There we go. Now this should have some randomness. Yeah, as you can see, it's a little bit more random, and yeah, it's not as static, I would say, and it works from any angle. Boom. Alright, so we're also probably going to do an on-tile collide, maybe. I'll add that off screen, per chance. Alright, so now all we need to do is add the explosion projectile, and then I'm going to throw in some screen shake. While we're still built, let's find a sound effect that'll be good when we hit an NPC. So we're going to do sound engine. Please. Play sound ID dot sure, sound ID dot unlock because why not? That actually works. Because it kind of sounds like the pin falling off the grenade. It's a little loud, though. So luckily we can do, as talked about before, volume equals 0.6F. That'll be 60% of the original volume. So it should be a little bit quieter now. That's actually still too loud in my opinion. There we go. Alright. I know this has been a lot. Lord. So now we have to make a new explosion projectile, bro. Alright, so I know this has been kind of a lot so far. It's a little bit more complicated than what we talked about last video, but all we have to do now is make an explosion projectile for when this happens. And before we do that, I'm going to make a helper method, because I recommend, for readability, to separate your code when reasonable. So now we're just gonna do explode, and when we call this void, it's going, or void, when we call this method, it's going to do our explosion behavior. So that's going to include sound effects, spawning the projectile, etc., etc. So let's work on that projectile. Alright, I've gone ahead and added a basic explosion projectile. It's one I've used in a lot of other weapons. I've simplified it a little bit. We're using the same texture as this one, but we're setting projectile.alpha to 255, so it effectively won't have a sprite because it's just the explosion effects. Then we have radius and progress. Radius is projectile.ai0. AI are, whoops, as describes here, an array with 3 slots, which is basically just data storage. These are automatically synced. Now, because they're automatically synced, you want to prioritize projectile.ai over, for example, like I did here. This should be like projectile.ai0, which I might go back and change that if I see fit. Because it's automatically synced, it helps out when you do like for multiplayer compatibility. But essentially, this is just going to be a projectile that expands in a little ring, and it's just going to have some dust that accommodates it. This colliding basically changes the hitbox from, as you can see, projectile.width and height is 2 frames, so that's just a tiny little square. But colliding basically overrides the collision detection, and we take this line, which is target hitbox as center, projectile as center. We normalize the vector, and then we multiply it by our current radius. Then we use this to check the collision. Basically, it just checks in a big circle, dependent on radius, is all this does. And not hit NPC, I say light them on fire, because you just got hit by a grenade. I think you'd be on fire. Yeah. And then in explode, all I have is this, which is projectile to new projectile, death, projectile.center, vector 2.0, mod content projectile to type gilded grenade explosion, projectile.damage, knockback owner, and then this in projectile to new projectile, it's AI 0. So that is setting this when we spawn it, projectile.ai 0 to a random number between 30 and 50 for kind of a randomized explosion size. I don't know if I'll keep that, but I did just, that's how I had it. I haven't actually tested anything, so hopefully it works. Whoops. Boom. So we have a neat little explosion, and it should deal damage. We do this. Yeah, deals damage. It doesn't really look right. I think it lasts a little bit too long, so we're just gonna do some adjustments here. Usually there are easing functions that kind of make it look a little nicer, but I'm not gonna do that in this video. Boom. That's a neat little explosion. I think for the sake of it being a weapon, the explosion should probably always hit. I'm just gonna make it 90 static. And yeah, now we have a little cool explosion. Simple. I'm gonna spawn some dust, kind of akin to vanilla grenades. We'll test those out. So So, you know, it kind of does some of that. So, ding ding ding, we're gonna do all that in here. So we're gonna do 4. Boom. Okay, I mean that's pretty cool. I think once we add some screen shake, it'll really sell it. But let's add a sound effect when it explodes. I don't think it's item 63. I think item 63 is a grenade launcher. I don't know why I remember that, but... Oh, that's a blow dart. Okay. Let's go... Sound IDs Terraria. Grenade. It's item 14. Here we go. Boom. So now we have a little explosion sound effect. Boom. Okay. This is actually pretty neat. Probably not balanced. And we can test it against like a horde of enemies here. If I don't hit that. I do notice the projectile, sometimes it dies after it hits an enemy, and now why that happens is we need to set projectile.tile collide equals false to make sure that it doesn't collide with tiles after hitting an enemy, which would cause it to die. It can phase through. I don't think anybody minds. But yeah, this is cool. We need to add a couple of things, but we have to rebuild, so let's rebuild. Well, not exactly rebuild. We have to add some new classes, which, as you guys know, means we have to close the game. So we're going to add, this is going to be a system, so we're going to add to our core folder, oh Lord, core folder, modders, I guess, I don't know. We're gonna do tutorial mod player. Tutorial mod player. Mod player. So the mod player class is an extension of a player instance that you can use to modify the player in some way. What we're going to use it for is Screenshake. So I'm going to add that real quick and then explain pretty much how it works. It's a very simple system. It's like 4 lines of code. Alright, Screenshake has been added. So very simply, we have an int shake timer, and we have this void add shake we can call from anywhere, assuming we have this mod player instance, and then in modify screen position, if shake timer is greater than 0, you increase, or you modify the screen position by a random vector, which honestly you can change that. This is some older code, but it's Screenshake. It works. If it works, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So now, how do we actually apply the Screenshake? We're gonna go down here to explode. First, we're going to have to get our player instance. So we're gonna call main.player projectile.owner. This gets the player instance of the owner of the projectile using main.player, which is an array, a static array of all the players in the game world. So we index that. We index the array using the whoami of our projectile.owner, which is the index in main.player. Basically, this is the player. Now we're gonna do owner.modPlayer tutorial modPlayer dot add shake. Let's add 4. That would be a decent amount. I don't know. The only other thing I want to do is, alright, on hit, no, on tile collide. We're going to return false here. And we're going to call we're basically going to do all this as if we hit as if we hit an NPC, but we're going to just do old velocity. Actually, do we have to do that? Yes. We can do old velocity here. And yeah, that actually should work pretty well. Boy, this has been a lot to cover. I hope this video isn't too long. Alrighty, mod is built. We're locked and loaded. Just calling a dummy. As you can see, there's some subtle little screen shake. Very neat. It's subtle, but I think that's how screen shake is best used. And as you can see, it also does it whenever we collide with a tile. I think is cool. Let's add some final effects just for a bit of pizzazz. Because why not? Because I want to. So let's go to Dust ID's Terraria. Let's find one that I think will be cool. Dust lighted. I think we're gonna let's do some more with smoke. I like to do 2 things. I want to do a little smoke circle whenever it hits an enemy, and I want to do some fire coming out of the tip of the grenade. So we're gonna take this position because we already have the tip of grenade elsewhere. We're gonna do dust.new dust perfect. Do there. Dust ID.torch. Vector 2.0, I think. 0 default 0.7F seems good. No gravity equals true. So this should create, as you can see, it's very subtle because the dust is so small. Ooh, look at that. It's got a nice, cool little trail following it. I think that's quite cool. Nice. And other than that, I want a little circle on hit and on top collide. So we're gonna do for int I equals, let's say 10. Whoop. Int I equals 0. I less than 10. I plus plus. So we're going to get mathhelper.pi over 2 pi, which is a circle, divided by I. I believe. No, that won't be right. Times I divided by 10f. Smoke. Then actually we're gonna need velocity equals vector. This is just a bunch of math. Vector 2.1 rotated by. I don't know if this is right, but it might be right. It's on top side. Yep, it's right. Nice. Look at me, I still got it. A little bit. Just 2f. So we can do this. In both areas, and now it'll create. That's kind of neat. So what's actually happening here is we loop 10 times, and then we take vector 2.1, which by default is a vector of 1, 1, which would be bottom right. It's a vector going bottom right, and then we rotate it by a full circle because we multiply by I divided by 10f. So when I is equal to 0, it's going to be rotated by nothing, which is down here, and then as I iterates, it's going to slowly rotate either clockwise or counterclockwise until it is an even perfect circle. And then that is our velocity that we set this to, which creates that nice circle effect when we hit a tile or enemy. So yeah, this is our finished weapon, which I think is actually pretty cool. It's a lot more advanced than what we went over last episode. I know it's probably a bit of a jump. I mean, it's the same basic principles. We're just taking it a little farther. We're learning about projectile and projectile behavior in a pretty neat way. And I don't think there are any bugs. I would hope not. I write bugless code, of course. Honestly, so yeah, oof, yeah. As you can see, our class got almost 300 lines long there, because honestly, coding can be kind of a long process. I hope this video wasn't too long-winded. In general, it was a lot to cover, honestly, and I'm just kind of playing it by ear. There's a bug there, which I don't know why it's happening, where I think if you hit 2 enemies on the same frame, it dies. There might be a way to fix that. Even though we're checking and can damage. Projectile penetrate greater than 1. Penetrate. Actually, we might also be able to do -1, return death timer less than or equal to 0. Which should fix that bug. But anyways, as I was saying, yeah, I hope this tutorial wasn't too long-winded or too confusing. It might be a lot to cover. It was just a lot to cover in one short tutorial, but you know, if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to ask in the comments. But yeah, next episode, I'm thinking we delve into maybe some accessories. I'm thinking of making a Hermes Boots alternative that creates some mushrooms behind you that maybe you can pick up to heal, maybe they damage enemies, maybe they do both, I'm not sure, but that could delve into accessories and how equipping accessories work and increasing player statistics when accessories are equipped. But yeah, other than that, I think we're all set for episode 2 the Modder's Blueprint. Thank you guys so much, by the way, for the support on the first episode. Really, I mean, it's unbelievable. I really appreciate all the kind words everybody had to say. I hope everybody's enjoying the series so far. And yeah, I'm looking forward to episode 3. See ya.